Okay, I'm going to start back at the recapitulation. Okay, recapitulation. One, the relation between questioner and answer in the domain of philosophy. These lectures are proclaiming no eternal truths. I say this to obviate misunderstandings which could easily impede our collaboration. I am not capable of such a proclamation, nor is it my task. Rather, what is at issue here is questioning, the exercise of right questioning to be achieved in the actual performance of it. This seems to be little enough for one who is pressing on to the possession of an answer. But in philosophy, the relation of question and answer is quite peculiar. To speak metaphorically, it is like climbing a mountain. We will get nowhere by positioning ourselves on the plane of ordinary opinion and merely talking about the mountain in order to gain in that way a lived experience of it. No, the climbing and the approach to the peak succeed only if we begin to mount. The peak might indeed be lost from view as we climb, and yet we keep coming closer to it. Furthermore, climbing includes slipping and sliding back, and in philosophy, even falling. Only one who is truly climbing can fall. I think that's worth repeating. Only one who is truly climbing can fall. What if those who fall down experience the peak, the mountain, and its height most profoundly, more profoundly, and more uniquely than the ones who apparently reach the top, which for them soon loses its height and becomes a plane and something habitual? If not possible, I'm sorry, these underlines are getting in the way of the words. It is not possible to judge and measure either philosophy or art or, in general, any creative dealing with beings with the aid of the facile bureaucracy and sound common sense and a presumably healthy instinct already distorted and misled long ago. No more than with the empty sagacy of a so-called intellectual. Here, the whole and every single thing within it can be experienced only in the actual performance of the painful work of climbing. So I think basically what I'm hearing, I'm hearing a lot in this, but the basic thing I'm hearing is a call, right? A reminder and a call of what we're doing when we're philosophizing, if we're truly philosophizing, that what we're getting closer to here, right, are not answers per se, but questions. And the act of asking the questions is the act of climbing the mountain, right? And thus the answer, right, is not the point, right? The point really is in the living out of the questions. And this really highlights again that philosophy isn't just speculating from a distance, right? It's done with your whole being, right? So, and as we climb up the mountain, right, our view of the peak is going to change and even be concealed, and we'll even fall at times, right? But that whole ride of climbing the mountain, i.e., asking the questions, right, is the performance of philosophy. It is the practice of philosophy. So I take this as a reminder. Okay, next paragraph. Anyone here who is only snatching up isolated propositions is not climbing along with me. The task is to go along every single step and the whole series of steps. Only in that way will there be a disclosure of the matter we are meditating on, and of the goal we want to reach. So again, it's a participatory sport. And you can see it like this repetition of these questions, these kind of restating things, these going around and around and around, right, can kind of feel a bit laborious and difficult. But necessary. That difficulty is necessary. In fact, in some sense, I think the job of philosophy, when it's doing its job, right, is making things more difficult. Yet, paradoxically, right, the difficulty comes in and through confronting the most simple, the most primordial. Okay, next section. The customary determination of truth as correctness of representation, and the fourfold unitary openness as the question-worthy ground of the possibility of the correctness of representation. Excuse me. Heidegger goes on. We are asking the question of truth. The customary determination of truth runs, truth is the correctness of a representation, the correspondence of an assertion, a proposition, with a thing. Although in the course of the history of Western thinking, various opinions about knowledge and representations have arisen and have again and again debated each other and intermingled with each other, yet the same conception of truth as correctness of representation remains the standard. The two main theories of knowledge and representation, idealism and realism, are not distinct with regards to their conception of truth. They are alike in taking truth to be a determination of a representation, of an assertion. They are distinct only with regard to their views about the reach of the representing. Either the representation attains the things themselves, realism, or the representation always remains related merely to the represented as such, preceptum idealism. Thus, in spite of the apparent difference of logical and epistemological standpoints, there is an overarching and ruling agreement over what truth is, correctness of representing. But in this self-evident determination of truth as correctness, there lurks something worthy of questioning. The multiple unitary openness of the things, of the region between things and man, of man himself and of man to his fellow man. If it were not for this openness, there could never occur a representing that conforms to a thing. For this conforming to does not first create the openness of the things and the openness of man for what he might encounter. On the contrary, it settles into an openness already holding sway and does so, as it were, each time anew. This openness is therefore the ground of the possibility of correctness, and as this ground, it is something worthy of questioning and inquiry. At first, it is unclear what it really is that we are referring to here and calling openness. Okay, so here's the beginning of the question. So he unconceals that what has been concealed in the tradition, the tradition is preserved, however covered over. We've uncovered it, right? And revealed that the ground, or what makes correctness possible, is this fourfold openness, right? Now that's in the foreground. The background comes in the foreground. And now we can begin questioning it. And here's the first sentence I'm hearing it anyways. At first, it is unclear what it really is that we are referring to here and calling openness. And that could only be one more reason to abandon the inquiry into what we say is worthy of questioning, especially if we recall that for 2,000 years, Western history has been satisfied with the ordinary concept of truth. Okay, the next section. C, the question of truth as the most questionable of our previous history and the most worthy of questioning of our future history. At this hour in the history of the world, we can and must ask where the Occident has finally arrived with its conception of truth. Where do we stand today? What and where is truth? In spite of everything correct, have we lost the truth? Has the West not fallen into a situation where all goals are dubious and where all bustle and bother merely aim at finding a means of escape? How else are we supposed to understand metaphysically that Western man is driven either to the complete destruction of what has been handed down or to warding off this destruction? These means of escape are not decisions. Extreme decisions require the positing of goals that transcend all usefulness and every purpose, and therefore are alone powerful enough to instigate a new creating and founding. Decisions, as such, positing of goals, especially in the situation we sketched, need the grounding of the soil and the instantiation of the perspective with regard to which and in which they are supposed to be made. Okay, I want to go through that last paragraph line by line here. So these means of escape are not decisions. Okay. Why are they not decisions? Because extreme decisions require the positing of goals that transcend all usefulness and every purpose, and therefore are alone powerful enough to instigate a new creating and founding. Okay, so in order to make a decision, right, you have to have a goal upon which you can determine that decision. The goal necessitates decisions to be made. That makes sense. Well, what he's saying is that a true decision, an extreme decision, right, is a goal that transcends all usefulness and ordinary purposes. So, in other words, I think what he's saying, in order to get a hold in a more original way, our relationship to truth, right? And to make a decision about this relation, we have to have a goal. But the goal needs to be something that isn't already determined by the current notion of truth, which would be average and ordinary, right? A goal that is, in some sense, determines the decision. But if we have a goal that is beyond and transcends all usefulness, right, the thing that determines why even bother in the first place to be useful, right? That's what we need to head towards, basically, I think is what he's saying. And extreme deliberateness and caution and care needs to be made of the soil, right? This last part, the decision as such, positing of goals, especially in the situation we sketched, need the grounding of the soil and the instantiation of the perspective with regard to which and in which they are supposed to be made. So in order to make such a goal, we must deeply intend to the ground upon which we stand in positing this goal, right? Which is, I think, what we're doing, is we're going into the background of the traditional notion of truth. Okay, he goes on. Are we, and for that decision that is most decisive, are we willfully and knowingly only at what lies closest, i.e., at the preparation for this decision? He asks. In light of the task, is the question of truth only a problem of logic, or is the question of truth the most questionable, one of our past history, and the most worthy of questioning as our future history? For everyone who has eyes to see, and especially for everyone who has torn himself from the indolence of an uncreative adherence to the past, e.g., Christianity, and from the presumption to possess the remedy, for everyone who does not want to go back, but to go forward, not towards progress, but into the concealed future, for such ones the task is decided. It requires reflection as the first and the most constant and the ultimate. With the question of truth raised, as it were, in the academic lecture, we shall attempt to take some steps in such a reflection. All right, so let's see if we can. What is there to say about this? In the light of the task, is the question of truth only a problem of logic, or is the question of truth the most questionable, one of our past history, and the most worthy of questioning and future history? So he's basically saying, like, is truth determining of us such that our understanding of truth is what determines ourselves, our world, right? All the things that have things show up in the way that they do, and what makes sense to do, and all of that he's proposing, I think, implicitly in the question, that our understanding of truth, right, determines and constitutes our understanding of everything. Therefore, this is important. Then he says, speaking of that, for everyone who has eyes to see, and especially for everyone who has torn himself from the indolence of an uncreative adherence to the past, e.g., Christianity, and from the presumption to possess the remedy, for everyone who does not want to go back but to go forward, not towards progress but into the concealed future, for such one's task is decided. It requires reflection as the first and the most constant and the ultimate. With the question of truth raised, as it were, in the academic lecture, we shall attempt to take some steps in such a reflection. So I think he's basically saying that this is a big deal, and that at best, right, we can maybe get clarity on what the soil is, and the very beginnings of articulating just the questions, right, of truth. I think that's basically what he's saying here. He goes on. Now, since the most preliminary questioning about truth has been confused long ago, thrown off the track and deprived of direction, we must reflect first of all on what is foundational with regard to the question of truth. All right, so we made it to the next chapter, chapter 1, the basic question of the essence of truth as a historical reflection. 10, the ambiguity of the reflection of truth. The search for what is true. Reflection on the essence of truth. Let us begin with a simple reflection. It will lead into a historical reflection, and this in turn will allow the unfolding of the question of truth to become a reflection on its necessity and its unique character. The question of truth asks about truth. The question is so straightforward that foundational deliberations regarding the question of truth might appear superfluous. To raise the question of truth surely means to seek the truth. And that means to seek what is true, or, according to what has been clarified above, to establish and ascertain what is correct about things and about all beings, whereby the correct is to be understood primarily in the sense of aims and standards to which all our actions and behavior conform. To raise the question of truth means to seek the true. But the true, here being sought, certainly signifies more than just any correct statement about any objects whatsoever, or whatever. We are seeking more than mere particular instructions for correct action. The true to which we give that name, and which we perhaps more desire than seek, also does not mean merely the sum of all correct statements and instructions for correct action. To seek the true means to pursue what is correct in the sense that to which all commission and omission and all judgments about things are connected in advance, that to which our historical humanity is attached. The true means for us here that for which we live and die. This true is truth. Already, from these brief reflections, we can infer that the word truth is not univocal. It means the true. First of all, whatever is at any given time correct in knowledge and in action and disposition. And then, more emphatically, that upon which everything depends and from which everything is ruled and decided. Okay, so I think basically what he's laying out here is he's bringing another dimension of truth. That yes, our conception of truth basically means correctness of assertion to things. Yet, more broadly, us being correct determines where we aim. And where we aim determines how we act. And how we act, right, is co-determined by our aim and reveals our aim in our action. So, in other words, the understanding of truth underlies everything. So, it's fucking important. Perhaps the most important. Goes on. But even if we heed this plural okay, here we go. What is this word? Even if we heed this plural vociity in the context of speaking about the truth and truth, we can nevertheless claim, and indeed rightfully, that in this seeking of the true, even if we mean what is decisively true, we are still not yet raising the question of truth. So in other words, even if we get down to what is correct, right, and we abide by it, and we make decisions, and those decisions are correct decisions based on our understanding of truth, and our actions are in perfectly correlate, are true, right, to our aims, right, which are the correct aims based on truth. That even if we do all of that emphatically, right, even perfectly, we still have not, that does not mean that we've raised the question of truth, which is our task here. He goes on. Even if we mean what is decisively true, we are still not yet raising the question of truth. That is, insofar as we consider true that which makes something true, true, and determines every single true thing to be the true thing it is. Just as cleverness is what distinguishes all clever people as such, so truth, rigorously thought, means what determines all that is true to be true. So in other words, I think he's saying, right, well, it's Platonic, right, in this sense. It's like everything that's true, right, arises from truthness as such, right? It's the through line, I think, is basically what he's saying. For ages, he goes on, for ages, that which universally determines every individual thing has been called the essence, or another word for that is the essence. Through it, anything and everything is delimited in what it is and is delineated against other things. Truth means nothing but the essence of the true. Wait a minute. Truth means nothing but the essence of the true. Truth comprises that which distinguishes something as something true as such, just as speed indicates what determines speedy things as such. Thus, to raise the question of truth does not mean to seek a true or the true, but to seek the essence, i.e., to define the universal properties of whatever is true. Thereby, we encounter for the first time the decisive ambiguity in talk of the question of truth. Okay, what is this ambiguity? Let's find out. 11. The question of truth as a question of the essence of the true, not an inquiry into the universal concept of the true. So, to raise the question of truth can mean, one, to seek the true, Two, to delimit the essence of everything true. It is easy to discover which of these two ways of raising the question of truth is the most urgent and the most important. Obviously, it is the search for the true, and above all, in the sense of the true that rules and decides everything. In comparison, it appears that the question of truth, i.e., of the essence of the true, is something merely supplementary, nay, even superfluous. For the essence, in the sense of the universal, which applies in each case to the many particulars, as e.g. the universal representation, house applies to all real and possible houses. This universal is grasped and formulated in a concept. To think the mere concept of something is precisely too abstract from particular realities. Thus, if we desire the true and seek it, we will not strive for truth in the sense of the mere concept, to which anything true as true is subordinated. When we seek the true, we want to gain possession of that upon which our historical humanity is positing and by which it is thoroughly dominated and through which it is raised above itself. Every genuine attitude of man who dwells in the real and wants to transform what is real, remove it from its place and liberate it to higher possibilities, will arrive at the univocal demand that can be expressed briefly as follows. We desire what is true. Why should we be concerned with truth itself? I think that's pretty clear. But so far, so we're going to go on. But insofar as we are here inquiring philosophically, and philosophy is the knowledge of the essence of things, we already have decided otherwise. In philosophizing, we reflect on the essence of the true. We abide by that which is precisely not a concern for one who desires the truth. And hence, they who desire the true must reject our intention as something extrinsic and useless. It was not in vain, but rather in anticipation of this rejection of our proposal, that at the very outset we said philosophy is immediately useless knowledge. Our reflection on correctness and on truth itself can accomplish nothing towards the correct solution of economic difficulties or towards the correct improvement and assurance of the public health, nor can it contribute anything to the correct increase of the speed of airplanes or to the correct improvement of radio reception, and likewise just as little to the correct design of institutional projects in the schools. With regard to all these urgent matters of daily life, philosophy fails. Nay, even more, because it inquires only into the essence of the truth and does not determine the individual truths, philosophy will not be able to settle anything about the decisively true. Philosophy is immediately useless knowledge, and yet something else, sovereign knowledge. Okay, so we're hermetically coming back to the notion of sovereign, right? Okay, so let's see if I can kind of summarize this. I mean, I think I've been summarizing it. But what I'm hearing in this is essentially, that philosophy is that way of being that looks into the deeper, more universal dimension of things. What is it that what is the through line, right, that runs through a domain, that runs through a class of things, right? Philosophy is here to address those essences, that essence that constitutes things as the particular things that they are, and make them available as such. We'll call it non-philosophy or non-philosophical thinking, right? Is something like wanting to find out what is true, what is the right institution to create, right? What is the right answer here, right? What is the right goal, right? Which is the concrete, practical world of concerns that we live in our daily lives. So in that sense, philosophy can't tell you the right movie to watch, or it can't tell you, right? I don't know. I think we get the point, right? It can't deliver you from the stress of your practical concerns. But, and if it tries to, it stops being philosophy. And in that sense, philosophy, when it's really philosophy, is sovereign in relationship to all of our practical concerns, right? Because it's addressing that which is determining and constituting of all the true things, right, that we're striving for. Now, if a decision becomes made, a true decision about something like truth as such, right, the essence of truth, however, that will affect how we see all true things, will show up to us different, right? So I don't think he's saying that it doesn't have practical import. It's more like it's the basis upon the way our practices show up for us, right? And so if in and through this, right, for example, in and through this philosophical inquiry about the essence of truth, we come to a different understanding, or we see truth, something hidden within truth, the essence of truth that we had not seen before, right? And something is genuinely decided there. Well, that's upstream from everything. So downstream from that, right, is huge implications, but it's by no means direct. Okay. He goes on. If that is so, then knowledge of the essence of the true, i.e., knowledge of the truth, could perhaps still bear a significance, and even one that reaches beyond everything useful. But how is the essence, as a universal concept, supposed to acquire a sovereign rank? What is more shallow or shadowy, and therefore more impotent than a mere concept? In this regard, a question still remains, one that is perhaps most immediately connected to the question of truth as the question of the essence of the true. Have we determined the essence sufficiently in identifying it with the concept? Perhaps the essence of the true, hence truth itself, is not grasped at all if we merely represent in general that which applies universality to everything true as such. Perhaps the essence of the true, hence truth itself, is not what applies indifferently with regard to the true, but is most essential truth, is the most essential truth. In that case, the genuine and decisive truth, upon which everything must be posited, would be precisely this essence of the true, the truth itself. In this case, the standpoint which pretends to care so much about reality, quote, we desire the true, why should we be concerned with the true itself, unquote, would be a great error, the error of errors, and up to now the most enduring of all errors. Supposing truth is this truth, then our inquiry into truth as the question of the essence of all truths, provided we carry it out correctly, will not be mere play with empty concepts. Okay. I think we will call this video complete.